We about to take fashion to a new level.
You know we gotta keep the women in hot gear.
Through styles, through color.
When I started FUBU, I worked at Red Lobster every single day. And when I came home at 12 o'clock at night, I sewed my hats until 4 in the morning. I got back up at 9 in the morning. I shipped my goods out. I went back to work at 2 o'clock. And I did that for 3 years straight until the business started to kick off enough money for me to pay the rent.
Our first guest tonight is Damon John, the founder of the clothing line FUBU and a shark in the award-winning TV show Shark Tank.
When I started, hip-hop wasn't big. And I started coming up with the idea in '87. I started really putting it out in '89. Hip-hop was something that everybody was generally laughing at. And I sold to just a core couple of people in Queens, New York. And then after that, those core people started going to the other 5 boroughs of New York and saying, of the 4 boroughs of New York, and saying, hey, look at these guys in Queens. And then those 5 boroughs of New York started going to all the cities and saying, I'm the FUBU person in Detroit. I'm the FUBU person. And that's how it spread. And it took me many years. I didn't get global recognition until '97. Failing 3 times. Not getting any global recognition until '97. The blueprint, it wasn't done before in my category of business. It was because I absolutely loved what I was doing, but our customer, nobody knew our customer better than we did, and we knew that it was growing. It's the same as I say about, this kid who won I always say this kid who won a couple of friends on his Facebook in Harvard. Then it went to Ivy League schools. Then it went to the world, and now he has 1.2 billion friends. Anybody, they have to concentrate on just their core customers. And if their core customers is only 100 people, you over-deliver to those 100 people. And then when you meet somebody like me or somebody who could be a strategic partner, they're going to go, okay, what did you do to get those 100 people to be these ambassadors? We're going to replicate that all around the world.
You are the presidential ambassador for the Global Entrepreneurship Summit. You can tell us more about that.
Well, I mean, there are 3 pillars of my mission of what I was appointed for. Number 1 is to give startups and entrepreneurs, primarily women and the youth, the knowledge of access to capital. Number 2 is to inspire them and give them hope and, let them be aware of the fact that they can empower themselves and become an entrepreneur and, put destiny in their own hands and change other people's lives as well as themselves. And number 3 is to give them mentorship and guidance in how to get to that level of entrepreneurship and all the things out there. So that's what I'm here for, first and foremost. I'm coming here to inspire people, but I've met so many people that are actually inspiring me. So in a greedy way, I'm learning even more than I thought I was going to be teaching.
You started your business as a very young man and was earning about $800 a week. And now you are into the millions. What advice would you give somebody watching you to encourage them in staying in their business?
It's been a long journey. It's been a tough journey. I wouldn't replace it for anything in the world. If anybody had to tell me about the journey that I was going to go on to and what I would have had to done to get to this point in life, I would have said, no way in the world, I'm not doing that. I'd rather get a regular job. But when you're doing something that you absolutely love and then you find out that it's inspiring people and changing lives, money will come, success will come, hopefully. So, it's been a long journey, but my life has been a series of great mentors, strategic relationships, amazing people that have supported me in my journey there, inspiring people, a lot of failures. But it's been an amazing journey. I don't want to ramble, but it's just really been an amazing journey as an entrepreneur, and that's what we go through as entrepreneurs.
What mistakes would you want people to know that they should not repeat when they are doing business and in entrepreneurship?
I've made mistakes of not educating myself in various different areas of business, primarily, though, finance, because I don't care what business you're in, the numbers are the numbers. And I always say it's very, very hard to make money. It's 10 times harder to keep it. It's a tool. It's a tool that you need to understand and utilize. So many people say, many entrepreneurs didn't go to school, but if you're going to go to school, learn finance, number 1. Other mistakes I've learned is not trusting my gut. A lot of us, we know that it's not the right thing. We don't feel like we're doing the right thing. We're not doing the right thing then. What works for somebody else is not what's going to work for us. Also, whenever I tried to do something purely for the fact of making money, I never made it. When you do something because the only goal is to make money, you either may end up in the wrong place for it or not make it. And if you make it, you're so miserable that you made it that you spend it so quick. So those are the things that I've learned that I tend not to ever do again.
Damon talks to us about challenges in entrepreneurship.
I think the first one, like we all face as entrepreneurs, is now the idea is working, how do I find partners and people who believe in me to get it to the next level? That's that kind of tipping point. And we face it various different stages of our career. Also, a big challenge that I had that I didn't know it was a challenge was the lack of financial intelligence. That's something that nobody else is in your way. That's something that you have to understand your numbers. And, you know, I closed FUBU 3 times from 89 to 92 because I ran out of money, lack of financial intelligence. I almost lost my home after I mortgaged it, lack of financial intelligence. And then when I finally did make some money, I lost a fairly large amount of it fairly quickly, lack of financial intelligence. Now, thank God I had a business that I could, the money was still coming back in.
Who does he look up to when it is matters business?
I would say that life is a series of mentors, and I've looked up to many, many people. I looked up to my mother, but I didn't look up to her until I was about 30 years old, and I realized what she was saying, she was right. I looked up to my stepfather who came into my life. And then my first external person looking up to was a guy I consider a mentor. He owned a small store in my neighborhood. And I would go to his store after school and he would talk to me, and he was a mentor. And I always say to people when they're looking for these big, amazing mentors, to run a successful, small, little store in my neighborhood for 20 years with ups and downs and gas shortages and competitors, it takes the same energy as running General Motors. And you can learn from everyday people. They're right in front of your face. Professors, mentor, store owners, things like that. So I looked up to him. And then I started looking up to my other strategic partners as I went up the ladder. And now I even look up, even though I look down, to my kids. They inspire me because they're digital natives. They're doing things that I would never have thought of. Other day I bought a new stereo set or whatever the case is. My daughter wired my whole house on her iPad in 10 minutes while watching cartoons. So I look up to my kids as well. I try to learn from as many people as I can.
What is this one thing you can advise young entrepreneurs?
Young growing entrepreneurs have to understand a couple things. Number one, take affordable next steps. Don't worry about growing overnight. Don't do that. Number two is find the following. There's somebody in the world, and many people in the world, that believe in what you believe in, and you sit there, and people love to root and be part of a system. And number three is don't try to go too fast, and don't take an investment too soon by third parties, because then you're going to end up working for them. And if you do those things, God willing, you'll be successful. We aren't always going to be successful. And by the way, the last thing, the most important, success is not money. Money just drives you up to your problems in a Bugatti. Success is doing what you want to do every day and making sure that you're satisfied with what you do every day. I'm the Shark Damon John, Presidential Ambassador of Global Entrepreneurship, and you're watching The Entrepreneur on KTN.
Welcome back to the show, and if you're joining us, we're in the second segment of The Entrepreneur. Our second guest had her story begin right here at Toy Market, so join me as we learn more from her.
My name is Lilian Wairimonjue. I'm the founder of V3 Creative. I founded it in the year 2013. I specialize in making bean bags, which is these humongous things that we're sitting on. And I've been doing it ever since 2013. I do many other things in the process, but this is definitely the specialty of my business. I was in African Nazarene University, where I studied a Bachelor of Commerce marketing option for 4 years. And I was a very vigorous student. I did a lot of activities, including initiated a game show which was called Battle of Wits. Towards the end of my campus life, I also got a child, who I've been raising until today. Well, I did go ahead and I graduated because I had to go back to school and finish. That was important. And then after that, I started my journey in different places in employment. For a few years, I think 2 years I was employed until my contracts were done, and I started looking for more options of employment, sending out CVs every day. I was not successful. You know, there's a lot of pressure, especially when you're raising a child and people are seeing that there's no income coming in. I was getting a lot of pressure. So it's when I sat back and I told myself I have to do something about this situation. So I called up a cousin of mine who used to have very many clothes, and I called up and I told her, all the old clothes that you're not wearing, could you give them to me? She didn't know what I was going to do with it, but she did. And she took me to toy market. I was going to sell them, and I started selling clothes just by the side of the road. Because at the end of the day, I have to bring in some money. You know, even if it's that 200 shillings, it goes a long way into putting some food into the stomach. So I did that for a few months, and it wasn't an easy journey. Because selling by the streets, sometimes it's really tough. But this is what happens. I met a friend of mine, meets up with me, and they see me by the side of the road selling, and they were shocked. They were like, wait, what are you doing here? Because, you know, that's not when you've studied and gone through a whole degree, people don't expect to see you doing some certain kind of a job. But he found me there and he told me, no, this is what we're going to do. Look for a place and tell me how much it's gonna be. I'm going to put much effort, and I'm going to tell some of my friends, and we're going to support you to help you to start a store. That's what happened. So the shop was 5,000 Kenya shillings. But the problem was this: the competition of selling clothes outside as compared to inside was too high. And clothes were never really my thing. I did it because I needed to do it. I couldn't sustain to pay the rent for the place as much as it was, 5,000 shillings, and it was shut down. Now, after the whole being by the side of the road, always wrestling with, first of all, when Kanjo comes, you have to give them their dues or you either run away. So I used to find a place where I used to run, hide my stuff. When it's clear, go back, continue selling. All that frustrated me a lot. And so I was at home, I was crying, and I was just by the side of the bed, and I was asking God, it's almost 2 years passing, I'm not employed, I don't have a job, no income is coming in, I'm frustrated. And in that moment when I was crying, I kind of felt a voice in my head tell me, what is it that you have? So underneath my bed was this old mattress that has been there for quite a while. I wiped my tears and I looked at it and I said, Lord, I have an old mattress. So I took it from under the bed. I started putting it in different positions, and I could tell this mattress can make a chair. First of all, I was quite impressed that, there's something here. I didn't know exactly what it was. So after that, I went on to the internet and I started Googling, what do you do with old mattresses? I find some results and I'm thinking, no, continued the search until I landed on bean bags. And that's when I said, yep, that's it. Lord, this is what I'm gonna do. I'm going to make bean bags. And that's where the idea was born for me to try making bean bags.
You won't believe how technology came in handy. We talk of YouTube Yego. Now we have YouTube, Warimo of V3 Creative. Listen to this.
After that, I took a YouTube tutorial because I didn't go to be taught how to sew. So I didn't know the first thing about creating a pattern. I did a YouTube tutorial, and that's where I learned how to do the pattern. I did the first pattern and it was good. And I remember posting it on Facebook because I didn't really have now a base to sell my stuff. Already the streets, I couldn't take it there because it's not the kind of location in my mind I would necessarily use to market it. I put them on Facebook. First of all, it was to test the market, to see how people respond to this kind of a product. It was a good response. At least for a week, I had good response, and I thought, yes, let's keep doing this.
Having gone through her hawking business, we want to know where she got her money and whether she was able to save so that she can start up her business. And in starting up, what were some of the challenges she faced?
Now, from my hawking business, I wasn't really raising much, but I used to save. Even if it meant 50 shillings, I put that aside. Once in a while, definitely I'll call up my brother and ask him for help because I needed to balance both, bringing food and saving for something I want to do. And that was like almost 5,000 Kenya shillings. So that's how I ended up making the first one. But I remember telling myself one thing: you never put money ahead of your dreams, because if you do, then you might end up never really doing it. Already to make one of these costs money. Capital is always a very challenging part, definitely. Two, you have to really understand the nature of the business you're getting into, whether you're getting into farming, if you're doing clothes, whatever it is, it's learning it. I had to learn, to teach myself through YouTube. I didn't have anywhere to really learn it. Number three, as you're introducing any kind of product, it might be new, it might be something that people already know. One of the biggest challenges is finding clientele, and it takes long. Because I do remember I started my online page in 2013, but my business started reaping good results 2014. So you have to be patient, really. I had to really be patient because finding customers who will come back, it's a tough one. It's definitely a tough one. Actually like calling them monster beanbags because this is medium size and I think it's still quite huge. It's people's favorite. The first thing that we do, we outsource the material. I outsource them from places like Gikomba. There are different kinds of material you find there. There's actually one that is locally made and there are some which are imported. It really depends on what the client wants. There are other sorts of material like animal prints, you can find leather, and each one of them definitely varies with price depending on the material that you do select. Once you've identified the material that you want, the next thing is to take it to the warehouse where there's a numerous number of tailors who now cut it. So the pattern is a very important thing when it comes to making a beanbag, because this shape it's just all about the pattern and what kind of pattern you have in your mind. So they'll cut the pattern and it goes through a few stages. Of course, there's the cutting part, then they do top and bottom stitch, and then there's overlock stitching, and then finally it comes to the trimming. So once that process is done, the next thing is now filling it. I use styrofoam, which is something that I always tell people I like, because for me, it's for someone else it's waste. You buy a new TV, you find those white things, you'll definitely throw them out. For me, I like them because I recycle them. Number two, it lasts longer. Three, it's easy to find them. And it brings out the shape very nicely for any beanbag that I make. Okay, depending on the different kinds of material, let's talk about this one. There's a smaller size to this, which goes for 5,500 shillings. Now there's this medium, which we are sitting on, which goes for 7,000 shillings. Then there's a bigger size than this, which goes for 10,500 Kenya shillings.
Your company is up and running and going on well with many orders, as you said. Now, where are you looking to take your company to in the next few years?
My future plan, now that I've gotten to the place where my logistics are well trimmed, I definitely want to go across the border. First of all, I'm introducing Nakuru and Mombasa in the near future to have stores there. Then I want to cross to Uganda and Tanzania, simply because I've been working towards getting in that direction, and the market research that I've been doing seems favorable. So I definitely want to expand it across East Africa.
From your work experience, from hawking to getting into your own business, give a piece of advice to people watching you right now.
First of all, if you're a young person and you're about to clear campus, I think the first thing I'll tell you is the road ahead just begins after campus. Some people are fortunate enough to get connections and, you're getting into employment. But the first thing that you need to do, especially if you're getting into entrepreneurship, first of all, have an idea that it could be something like, this is not a very new idea. It's very popular in the West and in European countries, but have an idea that, first of all, you are passionate about and you like to do. Simply because that will be a mileage for you to be able to continue and have a vision for it. Number two, you cannot be discouraged about numbers. I know the first thing that everybody, when they start a business, is 2 months, I want my profits in, and you start looking at numbers. You have to wait. You have to be patient, especially when you're starting a business. That's really important. 3, you need to understand your target market and who you're targeting, who are your clients. And that is important because it helps you know where your revenues are going to be coming from. The 4th and most important thing is just don't sit at home. You cannot just sit at home and wait for that letter to come through and say you have been hired. If you have to sell eggs, you go ahead and sell those eggs, because in the process of doing all that, that's when you really know what you want to do.
So what did you say are the lessons that you've learned along the way leading to your fulfillment in business?
My biggest lesson would be learn your numbers. Learn your numbers. I'm not ashamed to say I have messed up, I guess, a few times. So you learn your numbers. At the moment, what I do is I invest a lot in training myself, consulting. Very important. You cannot think that you know everything. First of all, your numbers are important. If you need to sit down with an accountant, let them take you through, this is how business is done, this is how you need to organize yourself. It's very important. So at least by learning that, I'm very careful on not making a mistake in the future.
We appreciate your time this evening, Wairimu. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Advice from Wairimu to young entrepreneurs out there: learn your numbers. Give us your comment and your feedback on our social media pages that are on your screen right now: Facebook, Twitter, and our email address. Until next week, same time, Thursday, 8:30 p.m. from the team and I is good night and God bless you.